Hi guys, welcome back and hello if you are new. So this week I'm going to be featuring a band which is probably one of my favourite discoveries from the world of the underground, particularly old school 90s kind of death metal. It is the brand new album from VOIDCEREMONY titled Threads of Unknowing. So the first time I heard of this band was when they'd just been signed to 20 Buck Spin and they released this album called Entropic Reflections Continuum. This album sees an addition of a new guitarist, which is Phil Tugas, who, if you're not familiar with, is in Catalyst, Atramentus, Worm. He's kind of a very prolific kind of person, I guess. And I think, if anything, he's just made VOIDCEREMONY sound even more expansive. So VOIDCEREMONY very much exist in that sphere of 90s death metal supremacy. There's kind of hints of human era death on here, atheist, I want to say a little hint of immolation, and then some of the early sort of suffocation material as well. So theirs is a sound which is often based on technicality, but is never really dominated by it. However, the fact that it is so technical, I think, could make, trying to get into this band slightly more difficult for certain people. And where production is concerned, the motif of classic old school death metal continues with very much kind of like a Scott Burns kind of vibe, but it's a little bit cleaner than that. Definitely has that sort of organic feel to it though. There's crunchy guitars, puffy bass, it's that sort of vibe really. At the periphery of Human Realms, for example, is kind of like this small interlude, and it's got a very high gain guitar playing on it, but then also contrasted with that sort of quite otherworldly cleans that kind of come in to create that atmosphere. I think that the band really paid attention to tonality on this record, and particularly whenever they, whack it into the neck pickup and that solo kind of comes in, it cuts through the mix really nicely, but also sits there, it's not kind of dominating anything, but it's allowing itself, a bit of a spotlight kind of thing. Writhing in the Facade of Time does a really good job of kind of instilling that melody, and as does Abyssic Knowledge Bequeathed. Some of the song titles are really hard to remember. And they do offer, a huge amount of melody that you can sort of latch onto. But it's not all kind of always these chop and changing time signatures. There are moments when they really let rhythm sort of churn a little bit more, a la Morbid Angel on Entropic Reflections Continuum, which is, like a real kind of more groove-centered song. So where bass and drums are concerned, I think bass is very similar to Steve DiGiorgio, that sort of like walking bass line, particularly Writhing in the Facade of Time. And then also on Entropic Reflections Continuum, there's an actual bass solo, and it sounds really nice. It almost acts as though it's the third lead guitar, if that makes sense. And it's nice puffy tones to it. Really, really interesting. And where drums are concerned, very much channeling that Gene Hoglan individual thought patterns era, where he could kind of stop on a dime, but also huge elements of like jazz. I think, there's a lot of heaviness on this album, but it's also very light at the same time. And I think that the drums have a lot to do with that. But I have to say, the lead work is what really, really drew me to this album, and actually to this band in the first place. And now that Phil Tugas joins Garrett Johnson, who is, kind of one of the main band leaders, it's just nothing short of phenomenal. Like, these guys just trade off guitar solos like it's so easy. And the fluidity of like some of their lead licks are just so good, man. Though I think there has to be a standout moment, which is, the trade-offs of Forlorn Portrait, where Phil and Garrett just kind of keep egging each other on as the album kind of reaches its crescendo, and it's such a cool moment. Like, you can just see the musical dexterity of these people. And I think their sound is almost kind of like a combination of Schuldiner meets Vi. There is quite a lot of atmosphere on this record as well. The ending of Writhing in the Facades of Time kind of moves into this John Carpenter-esque sort of landscape that really, I think, conjures up the image of the artwork really, really nicely before we kind of get thrown into another churning death metal maelstrom. I enjoyed Entropic Reflections Continuum as an album in 2020 a huge amount, but Threads of Unknowing has, surpassed that in every single way possible. I would say the only downsides really are the fact that it's quite technically driven, so it might be quite hard to get into, and secondly, that the differentiation isn't quite sort of as standout as you might think, and a lot of the tracks do sound very similar. However, with that being said, the tracks are absolutely phenomenal, and if you enjoy, the sort of void being filled by another band that sounds similar to Death, Atheist, Cynic, then you'll absolutely, really, really love Threads of Unknowing. But for that reason, I'm going to give this album an 8.5 out of 10. So thanks ever so much for watching. If you got to the end of this, I really appreciate it, and let me know what you think of the video in the comments underneath me. I'll be uploading some more interviews, my Q&A, and then of course all of the reviews as standard as well. So make sure you keep tuned and hit that notification bell so that you know every time I upload a video. Other than that, I'll see you very soon. Take care of each other and have a great Easter.